You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Strong show for you today. First, we have Maria Teresa Kumar to talk with us about how the Latino community is just being besieged on all sides by Trump and his minions, and what they and we, the rest of us, can be doing about that. And then Ann Hornaday is here, the film critic from the Washington Post, to tell us that mystery. Have you ever wondered, when you read a review and you loved the film and the reviewer hated it, or vice versa, what in hell are they looking for that I'm not, or vice versa? Well, she demystifies film criticism in ways that are hilarious, entertaining, and really educative. But before any of that, you know, we need to go inside the headlines. So, Puerto Rico counts the mounting dead, while the Secretary of State calls Trump an effing moron, and then does not actually deny that he did so. And then there it is, the worst mass shooting in the history of the United States. Until the next one, that is. Let's emphasize this, after the white, older, educated, Christian, relatively wealthy, straight male let loose from his Las Vegas hotel window with machine-gun-level weapons, killing at least 59 people so far and severely wounding over 500 more at a country music concert. After this non-immigrant, non-Muslim, non-black, non-Hispanic, non-female, non-youthful, non-poor killer chose to be a mass murderer, Donald Trump refused to call this an act of domestic terror, or to observe that the deed was done specifically through the wide availability of guns in this country. Internet trolls spread hoaxes trying to blame anyone who was not white, Christian, older, wealthy, straight, and male. Trump termed it an act of pure evil. How convenient. Not that he's ever heard of the banality of evil, which also describes him. Déjà vu. The NRA and their purchased legislators claim that just after such a shooting is no time to talk politics. That is, not the time ever to talk about the proliferation of guns that lines their pockets. This is in fact precisely the time America glimpses what those guns actually do, and what our appalling lack of restrictions on their availability makes possible, even inevitable. Rosanne Cash, one of the great names in country music, in a New York Times op-ed wrote, quote, "For the past few decades, the National Rifle Association has increasingly nurtured an alliance with country music artists and their fans. You can see it in NRA Country, which promotes the artists who support the philosophical and perhaps economic thrall of the NRA with the pernicious tagline, 'Celebrate the Lifestyle.' That wholesome public relations veneer masks something deeply sinister and profoundly destructive. There is no other way to say this. The NRA funds domestic terrorism. I encourage more artists in country and American roots music to end your silence. It is no longer enough to separate yourself quietly. I know you'll be bullied for speaking out. This is how they operate. Some people may burn your records or ask for refunds for tickets to your concerts. Whatever. Find the strength of moral conviction, even if it comes with a price tag, which it will. This is a moment in American history that can't be met with silence." Period. Close quote. Hoorays and cheers for Rosanne Cash. Come on, people. And people coming on. After racial slurs were written outside 5 black cadet candidates' dorm rooms at the U.S. Air Force Academy, Lieutenant General J.B. Silveria, superintendent of the Academy, addressed cadets denouncing racism and demonstrating real moral clarity. Quote, "If you're outraged by those words that were scribbled, then you're in the right place. You should be outraged. If you can't treat someone with dignity and respect, then you need to get out. If you can't treat someone from another gender with dignity and respect, then you need to get out. And if you can't treat someone from another race or of a different skin color with dignity and respect, then you need to get out." period, close quote. Bravo to Superintendent Silveria. The massive tsunami that devastated Japan 6 years ago unleashed a different threat onto the coastline of North America, a massive invasion of marine life from across the Pacific. Hundreds of species from Japanese coastal waters, mostly invertebrates like mussels, sea anemones, crabs, were carried across the ocean on huge amounts of floating debris generated by the disaster. That's according to a new study published in Science. The debris was covered with sea creatures that had survived crossings which in some cases had taken years. It's too early to tell how many of these tiny invaders have gained a foothold in North American waters, where they could challenge or even displace native species. While such so-called rafting of animals across oceans has happened in the past, scientists say that tsunami is unprecedented because of the sheer number of organisms, which points to one of the study's main findings, that this mass migration was the result of not just the huge natural disaster, but of changes in human behavior, because the larger the object, the more animals it carried. One of the first pieces of tsunami debris that appeared was a 180-ton floating dock carrying a diverse mini ecosystem of more than 120 different species. Representative Tim Murphy, Republican of Pennsylvania, announced that he will retire at the end of his term after allegations that Murphy, who is married and who vehemently opposes abortion rights, urged his mistress to terminate an apparent pregnancy. Murphy had already admitted to an affair with forensic psychologist Shannon Edwards. He'd been forced to do that by news that came to light during Edwards' divorce proceedings from her husband. Now this. He's just the latest in a long series of male legislators opposing abortion unless it suits their needs and then is done in secret. But hallelujah, the women talk. And last, a new Reuters Ipsos poll of more than 14,300 people found the percentage of adults who said they had a great deal or some confidence in the press rose to 48% in September from 39% last November. The percentage of those who said they had hardly any confidence in the press dropped to 45% from 51% over the same period. These days, that passes for good news. We have to take a break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be right back with one of my favorite recidivist guests, Maria Teresa Kumar, to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. The Latino community is under assault from all sides Trump, but it's really fighting back in creative and affirmative ways. So, coming right up.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. My first guest today, Maria Teresa Kumar, is the founding president and CEO of Voto Latino, and she's an Emmy Award-nominated contributor to MSNBC. You see her often there. She now hosts the show Changing America on MSNBC.com, and she's here to tell us about and help celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month in the crosshairs of the Trump administration. Maria Teresa, welcome back. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Robin.
Oh, so Hispanic Heritage Month started on September 15th, and it runs through October 15th, and Voto Latino, your baby, together with Mi Familia Vota, are spearheading this. So tell what to expect and how people can get involved.
Well, you know that I'm an activist at heart. So about 3 years ago, we saw that everybody was celebrating our culture for Hispanic Heritage Month. And I said, well, why don't we make it also a month of action to celebrate our roots, that we're proud of being Latino, but that we're also proud of being American. Yep. And so the idea was to focus people to register and vote, because it also happens to coincide right before voter registration deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
And so far we have over 150 organizations on board, and the idea is that we are firmly at the crosshairs of this administration, Robin.
Yeah.
We are the Latino community is firmly in the crosshairs, whether it's pardoning Joe Arpaio because he racially profiled Americans who look Latino,
Yep.
let alone immigrants.
Yep.
Whether it's the Trumped-up Voter Fraud Commission, where they want to basically remove 2 to 3 million names from the voter rolls, disproportionately impacting Latinos, who many of us who have several names, including myself.
Yes.
Or whether it's the repeal of DACA, which was unnecessary and made everybody more afraid and frail.
Yeah.
It's a recognition that we have to really, own our space in this country, and recognizing that there has never been a history of the United States without the contributions of Latinos.
No.
Many forget, but in the Southwest, there were Latinos before there were boundaries and borders, and we have to use this moment to really look in the mirror and say, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do to solidify our efforts? And this is now more important with this campaign. It's called WeMustRise.org, but the idea is that we try to register as many friends as family,
Yep.
and that we need our allies. Our allies really need to come forward. There's so many young people right now that are DACA recipients who are living in fear, who don't know that what's going to happen next. But my concern, really, Robin, are the aspirational DACA recipients. That 14-year-old girl that was waking up every single morning and saying, "When I turn 15, I'm going to become a DACA recipient. I'm going to do right by the law." And now her dreams are hanging by the thread.
It is just, it's the most cynical. I mean, sure, everybody in time apparently gets used as a damn political football. But this use of the DACA kids is so cynical, and his flip-flopping is so cynical. And the Democratic Party using it as a wedge, bargaining tool, even though its heart is in the right place, its actions are not what I would expect them to be, is cynical. And certainly the Republican Party is cynical. I mean, it's just nobody who's touching this is not.
The challenge.
They're absolutely creepy. They're creepy, oily, bad people. I mean,
Well, the challenge is that there's not right now. You would think that this is a defining moment for leadership to stand up and say these are our values as a country, and we seem to be rescinding them.
What kinds of things are you considering for the month of action? What kinds of things should people be doing, and so forth?
This year we did stuff slightly differently. We tried to bring voices to people that are oftentimes marginalized, or that people don't recognize how complex and how multi-beautiful the Latino community is. So we tackled the first week looking at LGBTQ issues and their participation as being part of the Latino fabric, and how we can support them and providing their stories. We are doing Facebook Lives this whole month, talking about also the importance of participating in DACA, making sure you're calling your members of Congress and really using that as a call to action. We're mobilizing young people to celebrate their Afro-Latino-ness as well, recognizing that there is a whole swath of Afro-Caribbeans and Latinos among us, myself included, and we have to have those conversations and recognize how deeply beautiful the tapestry is of the American Latino in this country. And finally, we must rise. We must make sure that we are talking and having conversations with our allies, talking to them about the issues that we care about, making sure that they're participating, that they're registered, that they are calling their members on Congress on our behalf, because some of these young people cannot carry the water by themselves. And then we're also having conversations with talking about mental health, because disproportionately young people are having really stressful times, and no one talks about self-care. So the idea is rising in beauty and rising and taking care of both of yourself, your family, but also being present and participating.
And this is wonderful. I hope there'll be teach-ins also about history and the role of the Latin community. And I mean, both for young Latinos and Latinas, but also especially to educate Anglo-Americans and Americans of all different stripes. I hope so.
That's right. No, well, and we applauded the the federal courts because they basically said that Texas had to bring back ethnic studies because they were trying to remove it. And the best way that we know our history is by knowing our past and moving forward. And then Voto Latino is also actively participating in challenging the state of Texas because they're trying to ensure that high school students don't register to vote, even though by law they're supposed to be able to allow organizations to share the message of voter registration. And Robin, one of the things that is really heartening is that when we register a Latino, we actually have really high participation rates. So while there's 27 million Latinos, only 16 million of us are registered.
Oh, God.
But of those 13 million of the people that were registered went out and voted. So when people say that it doesn't, that there's no participation, it's like that's not true. It's just that the resources and the infrastructure are not there, and that's why we create this month of celebration, but also making very clear what we need to do. Last year we developed Voter Pal. It's an app, Robin, that people can download and they can start registering their friends. So we're taking it out of the belly of an organization or government agency so that everybody has access to encourage their friends to have that I call it the talk.
that app is a brilliant idea. I mean, it's particularly for younger folks and for the new generation. I mean, they can employ it for voting strength. It's interesting that the bottleneck is not on voting in indolence; it's on registering. So once they're registered, Latinos vote like a house on fire. It's getting them registered. And why is that such certainly this country does not make it easy to register. I think it should be automatic, on turning a certain age and bingo, you're registered. But is it because of fear that they will be mistaken as illegal? Is it just?
No, the biggest challenge is that they're so young. So 60% of Latinos are under the age of 33. The majority of Latinos right now, so the majority of, my fellow white Americans, they are 56, 57 years old. That's the mean age. The mean age for Latinos is 16 to 17 years old. So, Robin, we are facing a tsunami of eligible voters. We get 1 million new young voters every year. And so it's just keeping up with the demand. And so we really need to have, like you said, states who are familiar with California, where it's automatic voter registration, where you have same day registration. And when you also are encouraging people to enroll and having the conversations in high schools. If you can believe, only 8 states out of 50 require civic education to graduate from high school. 8 states.
God, it's
so where are they going to learn how to do it?
Of course. No, I mean, of course. It's just, it's appalling. This is a wonderful campaign. And people can, look up at Voto Latino and at Mi Familia Vota, ways to get involved. And I wanted to ask you something else, allied, but with a slight, lateral leap.
Of course.
I noticed, because I'm such a fan, that MSNBC, on which you're a political consultant or commentator or smart person. Contributor. Well, the chyron underneath your head should read smartest person on this program, whichever one you're on. And also let her speak. Do not interrupt her, men. But leaving all that aside, I noticed that they're actually addressing some international questions to you. Not a lot, but some of late, which makes me very, very glad. And I wanted to talk to you about this is making me crazy, along with other things, about the interesting way that the regime, I refuse to call it the administration, the Trump regime, is reacting to Venezuela, which is in fact authoritarian and a dictatorship, but because it's a left-wing authoritarian dictatorship with oil, it's the most evil thing on the planet to them, whereas, I don't know, someplace like, Saudi Arabia, which is a right-wing absolute monarchy with oil, is hospitable and wonderful and dynamic. What do you think about the way that Venezuela is? I mean, Trump has even threatened to invade.
Yeah, well, I think that his tippy-toeing even around North Korea and Iran, and he's looking for his Reagan-Grenada moment, basically trying to rally Americans around him and try to find a country that is supportive. So I would not be surprised if Venezuela is in that mix.
Yeah,
Robin, I have friends and family in Venezuela, and the stories are important. People are literally, this is the wealthiest, folks forget, this was the wealthiest country in Latin America just 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago. It was the wealthiest.
Yeah.
And now people are dying because there's no food in the street, in the grocery stores. They are... Right, and they are dying because they're going around and plucking weeds and hoping that they're nutritious, only to find out they're poisonous. I mean, it's absolutely devastating.
My God.
And it's devastating, and so it is. While Saudi Arabia is by no means a champion of civil liberties, it's not completely a broken system where there is no access to anything, to medicines, to anything at all. I think though that the Trump administration, the regime as you call them, have different interests obviously with Saudi Arabia, because for him it's also personally financial.
Right.
And we can't forget that.
Yeah.
That he actually has hotel dealings with them and other properties, from what we're starting to understand. So for him, it's a very different calculation. But what is happening in Venezuela is absolutely devastating. The fact that it's happening in our hemisphere, it's devastating.
Yes. Yeah.
But that he will use it as a lever for his own personal gain. That is what I encourage Americans really to watch out for, that whatever we choose to do, that is done with caution. This idea, for example, that he is removing sanctions away from Cuba after we started opening up. The only people that hurts are Cuban people, right? I mean, that's who it hurts.
Yeah.
Because the elites will always be fine.
That's right.
Across the world.
That's right. Yeah, no, they're perfectly safe, and if things get bad, they can get on their private jets and go to the Riviera. There's, no problem for them. I mean, he was going to, oh, God forbid, he was going to invade Mexico too. So, this is par for the course for him. Oh, God. It's just keeping on becomes a harder job day after day, which is just another reason to roll up our sleeves and pour cold water on our heads and get going again,
Well, Robin, I think it's also, let's be mindful, it's a strategy, because if they're constantly inundating us with unbearable news, then people get tired and disconnect. Right. And if anything, we have to double down and be very clear that he is a sideshow. We should be paying attention to what Sessions is doing in the Department of Justice, because it's unjust.
Yes.
What he's doing over there. The same thing what Pruitt is doing at the EPA. The same thing that DeVos is doing in education. So Trump, whatever migrant he may give you, he's a sideshow. We should really be making sure that we're holding our Republican leadership up to task and making sure that they're aware that we're aware of what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely. And holding the Democrats' feet to the fire, too. Because his rapprochement approaches to them, to some of them, are very tempting. And we can't allow that either. And the selling out of the very people who make this country happen, let alone great. And it was before him. So, okay, for the entire month.
It still is. We're evolving.
Yeah.
It's tough. We're evolving. We're evolving. We're on our path of evolution.
Well, you're right. The Hispanic community is in the crosshairs, and I think that the country is at the crossroads. So Hispanic Heritage Month, which started in September 15th, and it runs through October 15th. Not that anybody should stop activism then.
That's right.
And it's about rising, registering, igniting, striving, engaging, and celebrating. And I am so grateful to you for your eternal, cornucopia of ideas and energy and activism, Maria Teresa. You're very special.
You're so kind. Thank you for being so generous and such a guiding light, Robin. Really. Thank you.
And now it's time for the Surrealism Corner. Blasphemy laws that penalize speech or acts considered disrespectful to a god are, quote, astonishingly widespread, according to a new report by the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. It identified 71 countries that punished blasphemy, two of which, Denmark and Malta, repealed their laws very recently, and it ranked countries according to severity, assessing them on the harshness of their penalties, the vagueness or precision of the stated offense, and the degree to which blasphemy laws underpinned discrimination against specific religious groups. Pakistan and Egypt were among those found to be using blasphemy laws as a form of anti-minority oppression. Of countries deemed to practice the greatest violations of international standards, Iran and Pakistan, where so-called blasphemers can face death, topped the list. I don't know why Saudi Arabia isn't right at the top. It's near the top. A surprising number of European states have blasphemy laws designed to protect established or privileged churches. Russia, Kazakhstan, Poland, and Montenegro are on that list, but most ex-communist countries retained a relatively secular ethos in their constitutions, so they have no blasphemy law. Although having a state religion was permitted in international law, the research showed a correlation between such regimes and harshly enforced blasphemy laws. Duh, you think? While on the subject of blasphemy and religion, we should pause and have a look at Amy Coney Barrett, the Trump nominee for a seat on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit in Chicago. That's a bench one step below the Supreme Court, folks. Barrett went before the Senate Judiciary Committee last month, and although the question of Roman Catholicism influencing her decisions on the bench, like about abortion, did come up, something far more important did not come up. Her membership in a small, tightly knit Christian group called People of Praise, which for the sake of brevity and deliberate irreverence I will call POP, P-O-P. Members of POP swear a lifelong loyalty oath to one another, and each is assigned and accountable to a personal advisor called a head for men and a handmaid for women. I am not making this up, although Meg Atwood thought she already had made it up. POP teaches husbands have authority over their wives and families. Heads and handmaids give members direction on who to date or marry, where to live, whether to take a job or work at home, and how to raise children. Isn't that special? POP also believes in prophecy, speaking in tongues, and divine healings, and although it's ecumenical, almost 90% of its members are Catholic. Now, although the Constitution specifies there shall be no religious test for office, quite properly, legal scholars say it would certainly have been fitting for the senators to examine what it means for a judicial nominee to make an oath to such a group. Barrett, age 45, clerked for the late Justice Scalia, but has never served in the judiciary before. She's a professor at Notre Dame Law School, a member of the Conservative Federalist Society, and she has 7, count 'em, children. Every nominee for the federal bench must fill out a detailed questionnaire for the Senate committee, but Barrett did not list any religious affiliations, and the Trump White House officials confirmed that they advise all their judicial nominees not to list religious affiliations. Barrett now appears headed for confirmation to a court one rung below the Supreme Court, and she's often mentioned as a potential candidate for the High Court, especially if Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg were to retire. And finally, economists are trying to understand why wages have stagnated, and they're now zeroing in on an obscure clause buried in many fast food franchise agreements. The fast food industry has been number one in fueling national job growth, and that's coincided with a boom in industry profits, although the average fast food worker takes home just $300 a week before taxes, which is about a third of what the average private sector worker earns. Also, the average fast food worker is female. Possibly the reason why this obscure clause got overlooked, because, hey, it mostly affected only women. Women make up 2/3 of all workers in the fast food industry. The median age of a female worker there is 32. A quarter of those women are raising children, and over 60% report having been sexually harassed. Now, the obscure clause bombshell is this. Some of fast food's biggest names, including Burger King, Carl Jr.'s, Pizza Hut, and until very recently McDonald's, prohibited its franchises from hiring workers away from one another, preventing, for example, one Pizza Hut from hiring employees from another. A lack of worker mobility has long been viewed as contributing to wage stagnation, because switching jobs is one of the most reliable ways to get a raise. The restrictions don't appear in a contract that employees sign or even see. They're typically included in a paragraph buried in lengthy contracts that owners of fast food outlets sign with corporate headquarters. Defenders of the practice argue that restaurants spend so much time and money training workers and want to protect their investment. Yet the provisions can keep employees tied to one spot, unable to switch jobs, negotiate higher pay, or, for example, get away from a sexually harassing boss. Who says indentured servitude is a thing of the past? Surreal. Time for another brief pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and we'll be right back for a conversation with an accidental film critic, a great film critic, who will teach us how to see movies in a way we've never seen before. It's quite exciting. So stick with us.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And welcome back again. Anne Hornaday, my second guest, is also a recidivist. Once they've done this program, you just can't keep them away. To my great pleasure. Anne is a film critic the senior film critic, even though she's still incredibly young, at the Washington Post, and she was a finalist for the 2008 Pulitzer Prize in Criticism. She has written a book that teaches us how to see movies in a way that we never have before and enjoy them even more. And I give you one warning. We did this interview by phone, and there's a little bit of feedback and interference at certain parts, which my engineer has valiantly striven to reduce. But anyway, just be ready for that. You can still hear us loud and clear, especially the wonderful Anne Hornaday. Anne, welcome back to the program. Good to have you back.
It's good to be back, Robin.
Well, you return in triumph, my dear. You return bearing book, Talking Pictures, How to Watch Movies by Anne Hornaday. You are, of course, the chief movie critic at the Washington Post, and a brilliant one. Don't make sounds of demurral, because you are. And you're a former Ms. survivor.
Indeed.
So this is a special treat. This is a book that if people thought they knew how to watch movies, after this book you realize you have to go back and watch every movie you ever watched before again, so that everybody in a sense can have a deeper appreciation of movies. And it's such fun to read as well. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so happy, and you've made my day, because that's exactly why I wrote it, which is that we are now if we weren't before, we certainly are now in a visual culture where visual language is the lingua franca of our time, and we are all critics. And whether we're tweeting or putting up a comment on Facebook or commenting on Rotten Tomatoes or just talking to friends, I think we are really now in a position. Media literacy is more important than ever, and so this is my humble attempt. And it's also kind of, as you see sort of leaping through the book, and as you know, Robin Morgan, having been at Ms., I never intended to be. I'm an accidental film critic. This was never my plan.
You're a journalist.
I was a journalist, and as a matter of fact, I even tell the story in the book that it was while I was at Ms., and I was working with our friend Gloria, and she very kindly offered me the job as her assistant for a couple of years. And it was really her advice, because I think she always felt that her experience as a freelancer held her in such good stead as a reporter, as a writer. So she was really the one who urged me to go freelance. And then it was in the 80s when I did that, and it was just at that boom time of entertainment journalism, and especially film journalism, with magazines like Premiere. And so it was really a function of my freelance life and just going where the money was, really going where the gigs were. And so I learned to watch movies on the job. I learned both in terms of just watching a lot of movies to prepare for my stories on filmmakers and then talking to them. Yeah. And so over the years, the book includes a lot of quotes from the people that I've interviewed over the years, because they've been my teachers.
Just everybody, from Al Pacino to Spielberg to, I mean, there's not a director or an actor or a composer who in some way doesn't surface in this book. I mean, this is a story of movie making.
Well, I hoped so, and again, it was, and my approach was always, when I was interviewing them, what is it about, the ideal film experience is a seamless one. Mm-hmm. The ideal film experience is an immersive, you actually aren't really thinking terribly critically if something's working. You're just in it, you're in that reality, you're buying that, you're in that world that they create. So what I have been asking people over the years is, given all of that, what is it about what you do that you would like us to know about? That you appreciate in other people's work when you see it, and when you can step back critically, either after the fact when you're kind of deconstructing the experience you just had, or conversely, if something isn't working so well, you can kind of figure out what it might be. Right, is it a script problem? Is it the production design off?
Right.
Is it anachronistic? Is the music bugging you? Is it too much in the forefront? What is it about performances that aren't working? So this book, again, is sort of built for both those things. It's either to kind of help you interpret what you've just seen and figure out what worked, or maybe what isn't working in something that you're seeing and not enjoying.
The chapter on music. There are films that are great films, but that I remember primarily because of the profound effect of the music. I loved The Mission, but if you were to ask me about a particular scene in The Mission, the first thing I would think of is the Morricone score.
Exactly.
And that's true for so many other films. This is the kind of book that sends you back into your own memory palace about movies that you've loved or hated or have been particularly affected by. And I came out wanting to see a lot of movies and apply this knowledge
I'm glad.
that I got from the book. You had started this as a series of articles, right?
Yes, it was really, it was when I was at the Post, and I was actually inspired by a book that Natalie Angier had written about how to think scientifically. She's such a brilliant writer.
Isn't she?
She's just one of my all-time favorites.
I love her.
Because of her tone. I mean, she just has this great way of being accessible and warm without being condescending.
Right.
And so she wrote this wonderful little primer in scientific thinking where she went and she talked to these scientists about what they do and how they would explain it to people. And pretend you're at a cocktail party and somebody asks you about astrophysics, how do you put it? And it was just a delight to read. And I came to my editor and said, we should do this for movies and kind of deconstruct them. And, in this job, you're often pitched with filmmakers that come through town. They're doing publicity tours for their movies, actors they do junkets and things like that. And it's always such a challenge to sort of take advantage of those opportunities without simply just being, pablum, marketing, another cog in the marketing wheel.
Right.
So it gave us kind of an organizing principle, and I did these articles over a year. I mean, I think I was doing them over like 2 or 3 years, where, if we could catch Richard Linklater coming through town, let's talk to him about directing. And those other craft areas, too. How do you know when something's working or not working? Or when a Carter Burwell is coming into town. Yeah. One of my favorite composers, speaking of, music. I mean, I'm with you on the music. It's just such a powerful aspect of the experience. So that's how we approached it. And it was a lot of fun, and it got some really good feedback from readers. And so I thought, well, maybe this could make a reasonably good book, and so here we are.
Wow, it is more than a reasonably good book. I mean, and the detail that you go into on every step of the way it makes it quite clear if any one cog is out of place. Right. It can't happen. It really is a gestalt. It's greater than the sum of its parts.
I would imagine from your experience as an actor too. Yeah. I mean, I should have interviewed you. I will interview you for the second edition. Because you must have had firsthand experience with that, right?
To some degree, yes. I mean, I worked with some of the directors in the golden age of television who went on to become major movie directors. Ralph Nelson, who did Lilies in the Field, and especially Johnny Frankenheimer.
Yeah,
a lot, and the great Sidney Lumet. Who was the most fun person for me to work with when I was a little person, because he had been a kid actor, and so he never talked down to you. He always talked to you with the greatest respect. I loved Sid Lumet. Kid Sid Lumet was his moniker.
I never knew that. I knew he was a child actor, but and I actually got to know John Frankenheimer very well. In the 90s, when he was doing a lot of work for HBO. And he was the one who told me directing is like being a plumber, because you're constantly just you're fixing things. You're kind of solving problems. And then it's all about the ingenuity of how you solve the problem. But so many people told me, so many directors told me that casting is 90% of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of the appreciations I had in the course of reporting the book and going back into these interviews and going back into my conversations with people like John was, I really have in my career looking at movies, I have approached them as aesthetic objects. I'm trying to approach them with a sophisticated, aesthetic eye. But I really have a kind of renewed appreciation for just how much cinema is an actor's medium. It's that's where it lives or dies.
Well, it's so close up. I mean, and
exactly,
and your face is 70 feet high on this. That's pretty. So the tiniest flicker, it's a very different set of techniques from stage acting or even small screen television acting.
Right.
Which has its own close-ups and has now its own bigger screens, but it's still not the same as, that huge screen in a movie theater.
And they know, and it's funny, I did a Q&A at the Washington Post last night with the director of this new movie about Mark Felt, who was the real Deep Throat during the Watergate investigation, and he's played by Liam Neeson in a very still performance. I mean, this is really a portrait of a man thinking, He's thinking about what he's going to do. He's making calculations in his mind. He's kind of looking around corners. And the director told an anecdote about a scene where he needed to register something. He needed to register the fact that a piece of news was new to him. And they filmed it, and the director said, let's do it one more time. I don't think you got it. And Liam said, I got it. I did it. It's there. And Peter's like, I'm not sure, let's do it. And he's like, nope, it's there, I got it. And he did. He had it.
Yeah.
He knew. I mean, they know how to use their bodies or their faces, their voices. The good ones just, but it's so difficult as a writer to quantify that.
Yeah.
How what are they doing up there? It's still a mystery to me. I just think it's amazing.
Well, I think if you feel you can see an actor thinking, and obviously by actor I mean female actor as well as male actor.
Of course, exactly.
But if you can see that artist thinking on screen and feel that you're inside their thought process, that's where the magic is. And it's usually through stillness, and doing as little as possible, as intensely as possible, if that
and
makes...
you know who did that this year? Speaking of I think, was Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman. I thought her performance was so expressive. And so... I really did feel like I was watching her think and register things and feel, and it was very subtle. I thought it was an incredibly accomplished performance.
I did too. I mean, and that got fairly little attention except from you. But mostly, it was because it was an action film. People don't expect that, so they have things stereotyped into categories. This is a super book. It is so much, it's so much fun. You get to learn things and you laugh and you think, oh, yeah. And then you want to go back and watch something with the new knowledge that you have, the new tools.
Oh, good.
Talking pictures, how to watch movies. If you thought, listener, that you knew, you were wrong. Now, now you will learn how to watch movies and have so much fun doing it. By Anne Hornaday, who's been with us today. Thank you so much for writing this book and for being with us, my dear friend.
Oh, Robin, thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's time for one last pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and in just a few seconds it will be time to come back for some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And welcome back again to some fighting words. The best antidote I have found lately to despairing over the lack of principled political leadership in our country, and in fact in most of the world, that best antidote is women mayors. They seem to be the embodiment of the saying, think global, act local. For example, Carmen Yulín Cruz, the mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico, who was a long-shot candidate in 2012 and cast herself as a pitire, a small bird known for fearlessly attacking larger ones. Now 54, she has pulled down the wrath of El Trumpo for daring to criticize the shocking lack of federal response to the disaster that Hurricane Maria wreaked on the island. With the rage of a woman, that is, with tears in her eyes but fury in her voice, she held a news conference and issued a verbal distress signal. Mayday, Mayday, we are dying here. I never thought I would have to beg, but my job is to make life better for my people. She personally helped evacuate residents of an assisted living facility after a fire broke out there. As emergency workers and troops struggle to restore basic services in a commonwealth with no electricity, with limited fuel and water, and a rising death toll, Trump spent the day at his New Jersey golf club blasting out tweets attacking Mayor Cruz, the way he apparently attacks every Latina he encounters, saying she was a poor leader, was nasty, familiar? And that Puerto Ricans want, quote, everything done for them, close quote. But this mayor rose above his insults, saying she had no time for petty politics when there were lives to save, and adding that if Trump were to say, I'm going to San Juan to see that nasty mayor, I would receive him with open arms because democracy is larger than me. That's dignity. That's a leader. He went. He refused to see her. The 6-foot-tall plus coward. Then there's wonderful Mayor Karen Weaver of Flint, Michigan. Remember her? African-American and the city's first woman mayor? It was Karen Weaver who declared a citywide emergency due to the water crisis in the area and first got national attention. She also pushed for a similar declaration by state and federal authorities. Finally, this was granted by Michigan Governor Rick Snyder and President Barack Obama in January of 2016. This declaration meant that the federal government would be responsible for disaster relief efforts rather than the state of Michigan, as had been the case before, and that's a crucial difference since the governor of Michigan brought the catastrophe to Flint in the first place. Weaver has stayed on the case, and she's still fighting to keep Flint, which is still suffering, from dropping off the public attention map. Because she's still fighting, and because she endorsed Hillary Clinton and spoke at the Democratic Convention, a recall campaign was started by her adversaries. And although thousands of signatories to the recall petition were contested and found fraudulent, a recall vote will be on the ballot this November. Weaver keeps on keeping on. That's a leader. And there's Frenchwoman Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris, who is the first woman chair of the C40, that's a network of the world's megacities committed to addressing climate change. At the C40 Mayors Summit 2016 in Mexico City last December, she announced that supporting and celebrating women leaders in climate action will be a key priority for her term as C40 chair. That summit brought together the world's most influential mayors, representing 650 million citizens, to present their common goals for a sustainable future 1 year after the climate change agreement in Paris, the same one from which Trump wrenched the United States out. Says Hidalgo, quote, the negotiation of the Paris Agreement was concretely delivered by women leaders, and women will be essential in making it a reality in our cities. There are so many women mayors, deputy mayors, CEO and NGO leaders in cities around the world. I am determined to recognize the unique role they are playing in transforming our cities. Women are more than ever key to the future of our planet." Close quote. And she walks the walk, too, launching the Women for Climate initiative to help support and celebrate women leaders who are driving forward climate action, and to mentor younger ones. At the inaugural Women for Climate conference in New York City last March, the women mayors of Paris, Mexico City, Durban, Cape Town, and Caracas were among those who pledged to support and mobilize the next generation of women leaders fighting climate change. You can find them online at Women for Climate. That's WOMEN and then the number 4, climate. Women for Climate. Those are leaders. Ever think about running for mayor of your city or town? Just saying. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag #FightingWords. And that's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMCLive.com for the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes, and at iTunes, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. And you can check out my website and blog at robinmorgan.net and find me on Facebook and Twitter, too. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton, and our founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.